I start? Good. Good evening. I'd like to speak to you tonight about the need and the opportunity for OD practitioners to engage with organizations that are seeking to adopt sustainable business practices. And I'll do this talking about the illustration of my association with a leading international environmental NGO over a span of about 5 years. My name is Daniel Doucette. I'm a newbie to OD. I'm new to the OD network of New York. I've worked for over 20 years in the international NGO sector. Until about November, I had worked for over 5 years with Rainforest Alliance, which some of you may be familiar with. And I'm starting a master's program in OD in May, as well as a certificate in coaching. And that's me on Machu Picchu. Tonight I'm going to be speaking about the challenges faced by organizations in adopting these new sustainable practices. And all too often, we found that these fall short of truly being integrated into the organization. And so this is an opportunity for OD profession to really connect with these groups and make a true transformation happen. I want to start by talking about my definition of sustainability, and this is inspired by my time with Rainforest Alliance. And the key to this definition is that they include three aspects in their framework, and that is environmental, as well as social and economic. And the following is my actual definition. These are the word slide. To me, sustainability is the integration of policies and practices throughout an organization that take every practicable opportunity to avoid or reverse negative environmental, social, and economic impacts on communities directly and indirectly related to the operation. I'm going to say that again, lots of words. The integration of policies and practices throughout an organization that take every practicable opportunity to avoid or reverse negative environmental, social, and economic impacts on communities directly or indirectly related to its operations. Great. So we're going to talk about a couple of examples on organizations seeking to adopt these practices. And as I talk, I'm sure you can imagine ways in which you as an OD practitioner may be able to actually help them make the true transformation happen. So in the first example, Rainforest Alliance has one particular program called Smart Source. And what they do is they partner with corporations and focus on their purchasing practices specifically. The idea is for them to source sustainably produced goods and services, such as building materials for their buildings, paper for their offices, or even coffee. And these are products that have to be certified as sustainable by a third party according to some international sustainable standards. But this effort is usually, as I said, specifically focused on the purchasing function of a corporation. Now, many times the marketing folks are involved because they get the opportunity. But for example, the CFO is not involved, so they're not really tracking and reporting on return on investment of these initiatives. HR is not involved, so they're not really using this as an opportunity to improve their recruitment efforts or create some kind of employee engagement programs around this initiative. Very often it's limited to one particular division of a very large organization, or it's been inspired by one particular leader, and so there's always a threat that when the leader leaves, then the initiative will fail. So the question is whether or not this is really penetrating the entire organization and actually transforming the way that people think about the work that they do. So the work by NGOs like Rainforest Alliance is very important, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. They get an organization started down the path of being truly sustainable, but their capacity and their expertise ends there. And this is where I see that there's an opportunity for OD as a profession to step in and really make the transformation happen. So my second example is Rainforest Alliance internally. And what they did was they wanted to really walk the walk of what they were preaching to their folks externally. And so they created an initiative called the Sustainable Business Operations Council. And the story goes, in this case, that a group of local staff in the Costa Rica field office got together some years ago, and they said, we want to walk the talk. So they got together and they came up with ways that their local office could reduce the waste that they produce, reduce their energy use of the office, increase their recycling efforts, and increase their purchasing of sustainable products. And what happened was that this eventually was noticed by senior management of the organization, and it became an organization-wide initiative supported by the executive office. It became an objective that was in the annual planning documents. They created committees in every office in this organization-wide council with reps from every office. But the problem in this case was it stopped on focusing on the environmental aspect of the impact of the organization's operations. They didn't really get into the social and economic aspect because the problem here was to get there, it couldn't just be an employee-led initiative. They had to involve the HR leadership, finance, and fundraising, and it hadn't yet made that step, that leap to involving these other key leaders in the organization. So you can see that they kind of had the beginning of a vision. It was a bottom-up effort that got buy-in from the top, but they didn't really make the connection with middle managers to make it a truly transformative experience. So as I conclude both of these examples, what I would say is that true sustainability is about much more than just sustainable purchasing practices or supporting local employment or reducing waste or any of these individual particular changes that you can make. It's much more than that. And when you go back to the definition that I proposed, I would pose that true sustainability really has to penetrate through all levels and all units of an organization. It really ultimately has to be embedded and change the way that people think on a day-to-day basis about everything that they do. It really is about changing the culture of the organization and change it in a way that can withstand new leadership or even changes in the business objectives over time. So our society is a corporate society. And if we want to really get to achieving true sustainability, we have to transform the way the corporate environment works, with the way it functions. I think that as I've spoken through these examples, you can see very easily how the skills and expertise of the OD practitioner, this is a future OD practitioner, plays an important part of making this transformation happen. And actually, it's about saving the world. So I'm actually very excited as I go and launch my own career in OD to try to focus on this particular aspect. And I look forward to talking to you all about this in the breakout.